Raised fiberglass spillover spa. Hi team. I've enjoyed checking out your website and reviewing your very impressive catalog of videos and content. I'm hoping I missed it and you can point me to where you've covered it, but I couldn't find much information related to the specific installation considerations for raised fiberglass shell spillover spas. Hence this question that we could put on YouTube. I would really like to know what the general best practices are for structure and setup of these types of arrangements, such as the base material, walls and veneer construction, spacing to the pool, and other unique considerations for this type of installation. I am sure hoping you can shed some light on this.
So this is a topic that could probably have a half an hour conversation on because there's unlimited number of possibilities. Let's take one scenario. I'm going to add a fiberglass spillover spa, raised spillover spa into a pool. What I need to think about is, what do I want it to look like? How high above the pool wall do I need it to be so that it looks properly? Where the spillover is going to go? Do I want it, is it in a curve? Is it in a straight area? How to figure all that out. Once I know that the spillover is going to make it into the pool by my positioning, then I have to think about what structurally needs to hold it in place. And here's how I've always done spillovers. When I used to do them in fiberglass, now ours have always been shot in concrete around a pool, but in the earlier days I would take a fiberglass shell. As I was pouring the footing for the pool itself, I would pour a big pad of concrete below the level of where the base of my spa needed to sit so that it stuck up high enough out of the ground. So you picture, let's say the spa is 36 inches deep, 36 inches tall from top to bottom. They range from 36 to 42 or so probably. And I want the spa to stick 18 inches above the ground. So that means 18 inches above ground, 18 inches below ground is going to be the base. And now we have to think about, in our case, frost. The law requires that that the concrete needs to go down 42 inches. So if I'm 18 inches above, 18 inches below, that means that I still have 34 inches of concrete underneath. That could be achieved by putting a base of stone down and then concrete on top, but I would always make sure that my base that everything is going to sit on is frost protected and frost proof. Sometimes it required 30 inches of concrete poured all the way underneath the spa. Once that was in, set the spa in place. To set the spa properly, I would mix, after the footing was set in, I would mix some concrete, just some bags and bags of Quikrete, keep them fairly wet, to use those to set the base of the spa in to be able to level it. Now the base is supported all the way, hold it in place, let that set up, and then start from the footing and block up. Create a block circle all the way around if the spa is a circular, and all the way up. And as you got above grade, go to a narrow block so that I now had blocks around all the way around, which I could then stone. What that did was that allowed me to pick the materials I wanted. You have to think about tolerances and how much space and how wide things are going to be and what are you going to cap it with. You kind of have to go through, what's the structure look like? First off, what's the raw structure before you do anything decorative? Probably cinder block, filled with concrete, filled with stone, anything you could fill in there, blocked up. And then how do I cap it so that it's perfectly level on the top? And then how far does the cap need to stick out? On the outside, less so on the inside because that's going to be fiberglass, but on the outside, does it need to stick out 2 inches so that I could get 1.5 inches stone in there? Does it only need to stick out 1 inch so I could veneer it with tile? And what am I going to use? Artificial stone, natural stone, veneered stone, chipped field stone. There's any number of possibilities, but what you need to do is pick the materials and then determine all your tolerances. How much, because the last thing you want to do is put a top cap on so it looks really nice and then have your face stone stick out past the cap. So you need to think about that. How big does that capstone have to be so that there's enough room that my tile finish on the face will look right? Or do you tile the whole face first or stone the whole face first before you put the stone coping cap on? What I would do is each case and each scenario is different. And I would use my knowledge of what I'd done before to try it for the next one. If I were to do it all over again without any of this knowledge that I currently have, I today would stop and step back and think structurally, what does it need to look like first? And then how can I turn it into whatever that dream picture is that I've seen somewhere else or I've come up with in my head? But it always starts with, is the structure underneath right? Because no matter what you do, if that's not right, everything else you do is eventually going to fall apart. So I'm an overbuilder. Make sure it's strong, that you've spent enough time, energy, and money to make sure it's not going to flip, flop, fall around. I've seen things pop out of the ground. I've seen them float out of the ground. I've seen people do all kinds of great, crazy stuff to make it look cool, but then don't do the work to really make it last. And it looks great for 3 months and falls apart. Not a good idea. So hopefully that helps. There's a lot. We have a lot of that stuff online. Probably a lot of our older stuff because, many years ago we did spas that way, and there's probably plenty of pictures out there somewhere of those construction projects.